Truistery Vibes warmly welcomes all our beloved listeners. We're so glad to see you again in our familiar time slot.
Today,
Truistery Vibes brings you a brand new story, one that we hope will touch your heart and stay with you. As you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing the quote or moment that left the deepest impression on you. Wishing you a wonderful and meaningful listening experience. The first pale fingers of dawn had barely touched the sky when Celeste Harper swung open the doors to her stall at the Maple Grove Farmers Market. A chill still clung to the air, but already a steady stream of early birds wound its way between the rows of produce stands and artisanal booths. Celeste, 58, and as tough as the leather apron she wore, arranged her day's catch, silvery trout and plump tilapia, on beds of crushed ice, her practiced fingers working quickly despite the early hour. All around her, vendors set out baskets of heirloom tomatoes, jars of local honey, and freshly baked sourdough loaves. The low hum of conversation rose and fell, punctuated by the clang of scales, the rustle of paper wrappings, and the distant sizzle of breakfast sausages cooking at a nearby food cart. Overhead, strings of lanterns still hung, remnants of last night's closing routine, casting a soft glow that mingled with the emerging daylight. By 6:30 a.m., the market was buzzing. Early shoppers, regulars who preferred the selection before the crowds, called out greetings and bartered good-naturedly over prices. That's when Monica Reed appeared, her baby bump already rounding conspicuously beneath a fitted denim jacket. At 35, she still moved with a natural grace, but today her steps were measured. She approached Celeste's stall, credit card in hand, determination in her eyes. Celeste, never one to soften easily, flicked a wary glance at her daughter-in-law. "Morning, Monica," she said, voice edged with its usual sharpness. "You know the tilapia's up to $12 a pound now. You sure you want it?" Monica smiled politely, though her cheeks tinged pink in the cool air. "Yes, please, Mrs. Harper. I need the fish for tonight's dinner." Celeste's shoulders squared. "Dinner for who? You've barely stopped at my place the last few days." Before Monica could reply, Dahlia Sanchez, Celeste's neighbor and longtime market ally, leaned in conspiratorially from behind a stack of fresh cilantro. Dahlia, 50, draped a colorful scarf over her shoulders, her laughter lines deep with decades of friendship and market gossip. "Hey, Celeste," she teased. "You've been missing Monica's cooking so much you forgot she's expecting? She's not slacking. She's carrying your grandson." Celeste snorted, brushing imaginary dust from her apron. One would think she'd spare a thought for her mother-in-law then, come by more often. But no, I guess she's got better things to do. She reached for a trout, flipped it to show Monica the gleaming scales. "This one's fresh off the boat yesterday. You want it?" Monica's jaw tightened for an instant, but she nodded. "I'll take it, one trout, please." She handed over her loyalty card, tapping to pay. As Celeste wrapped the fish in brown paper, Dahlia leaned closer to Monica, lowering her voice. "Don't mind her. Market mornings are her therapy." Her warm eyes flicked to Celeste. "You know that better than anyone." Monica's expression softened. "I know, Mrs. Sanchez. Thank you." Celeste handed Monica the package with a brisk nod.
there.
"Have your dinner, and don't forget that prenatal appointment at St. Jude's tomorrow." Monica lifted a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. "I won't. Thanks." She turned and moved down the aisle, past baskets of curly kale and fragrant lavender sachets. As she walked, the hiss of the market stirred behind her. Vendors calling out their specials, the clatter of wheels on pavement, the fresh promise of a day beginning. Dahlia watched her go, then shook her head with a rueful smile. "She's a trooper," she said, addressing the empty space where Monica had stood. "That girl's going to be a great mom." Celeste merely grunted, eyes fixed on the next customer approaching her stall. But in that blink, her lips softened almost imperceptibly. Dawn at Maple Grove, business as usual, but beneath it, the first stirrings of family bonds being tested and, perhaps, slowly stitched back together. By 7 a.m., the market's bustle had given way to the early morning commute. with her catch from Celeste's stall tucked into insulated bags. Monica Reed navigated the quiet streets toward Morning Mist, the cozy corner café she managed. Nestled between a vintage bookshop and a florist, Morning Mist was her pride and her solace. The place where she had built a reputation for velvety lattes and almond flour scones that made the neighborhood buzz. Monica unlocked the glass door, shook off a swirl of crisp air, and set her shopping bags on the counter. Already, the espresso machine, her second heart, hissed and purred, steam curling into the dawn light. She paused for a moment, placing a hand gently on her belly. At 24 weeks pregnant, she could feel her son's restless kicks, like tiny wings fluttering against her ribs. Each movement reminded her both of the life growing inside her and the life she was fighting to protect from the swirl of expectations at home. She flipped the closed sign to open, and by 7:15, the first customers trickled in. There was Martin, the freelance graphic designer who favored a double-shot Americano. Next came Mrs. Collins, the retired schoolteacher who always ordered chamomile tea. For calm nerves, she'd say with a wink. Monica greeted them all by name, her warm, "Good morning," ringing clear above the low jazz record playing on the café's vintage turntable. Behind the counter, Monica moved with practiced ease. She steamed milk, tamped espresso, and arranged pastries on the glass case. Yet each morning felt a little heavier than the last. Fatigue wrapped around her like a wool shawl, the world's weight pressing down on her shoulders. A small wave of nausea washed over her as she reached for a linen towel. She paused, closed her eyes, and took in a slow breath. Just breathe, she reminded herself. By 8 a.m., the café filled up. The lunch rush line snaked out the door. The scent of freshly ground beans mixed with warm bread was intoxicating. Monica's phone buzzed in her apron pocket. Mom's text. "Dinner at 6? Your father wants to talk about that tilapia price." She flashed a tight smile at her barista, Elena, who was sliding a matcha latte across the counter to a waiting customer. Elena, leaning in quietly, "You okay?" Monica nodded, though her shoulders rose in a half shrug.
"Yeah,
"Just family stuff." Elena offered a sympathetic smile. They had been friends since college, back when neither of them had imagined juggling a cafe and a baby bump.
now."
Elena covered most of the afternoon shift so Monica could sneak in her ultrasound appointments and rest when needed. The flow of orders never stopped. Oat milk lattes, iced cold brews, green tea fraps for the high schoolers who crammed the back tables. Monica winked at an elderly gentleman, Mr. Patel, who praised her gluten-free muffins. Then she noticed her reflection in the mirror behind the pastry case. Her hair was pinned up haphazardly, her cheeks slightly flushed. She dabbed a fingertip at a bead of sweat and kept moving. At 10:30 a.m., she finally stretched her legs, popping out the kitchen door into the little courtyard behind the cafe. The sunlight hit her face, and she closed her eyes, letting it warm her skin. For a moment, the world narrowed to just Monica and her son, quiet, intact. But she couldn't stay. Orders awaited, and her phone buzzed again. "Tilapia dinner is non-negotiable. Don't be late." She tapped out a quick reply. "I'll be there." Turning back inside, she felt the familiar dollop of guilt. Her mother-in-law, Celeste, had summoned her for dinner every evening this week. Celeste insisted Monica's pregnancy entitled her to special treatment, but only on Celeste's terms. Monica longed for spontaneity, for a dinner where she could curl up with takeout and her husband Derek, but morning's disappointment still gnawed at her. They hadn't spoken since the confrontation in his pickup truck. Back behind the counter, she took deep breaths, counting to 3 before answering the next call for a macchiato. She poured silky milk over ristretto espresso, then placed a single caramel sugar cube on the saucer, her little flourish. The customer's appreciative smile felt like a small victory, a reminder that she wielded control here, even if only with steamed milk and coffee. By noon, Monica's back throbbed, and a dull ache radiated through her hips. She pressed a hand against her lower back, seeking relief.
"Elena noticed. Elena."
"Want me to handle this round?" Monica, forcing a smile. "Thanks, I need to sit down for a sec. She slipped into the office, an unassuming room lined with chalkboards scrawled with daily specials, and sank into the old swivel chair. She closed her eyes and let the hum of the café wash over her. In the corner sat a framed photo of her and Derek on their wedding day, bright smiles brimming with hope. She reached out, brushed her fingertips across the glass. What happened to us? A soft rap on the door broke her reverie. Elena peeked in. Elena. Hey, your regulars are asking where you are. Monica roused herself, smoothed her apron. Thanks. I'm good. She straightened her back, took a final deep breath, and stepped out into the crowded space. The lunch rush eased. By 2 p.m. Monica switched off the counter's heat lamp and surveyed her domain. Empty chairs, a few lingering customers, the lingering scent of fresh coffee beans. She loved this cafe, its rustic brick walls, the mismatched armchairs, the old record player in the corner. It was her world. Yet beyond those walls lay a second world, one ruled by Celeste's sharp expectations. Tonight's dinner would be another test. As Monica cleared tables and wiped down counters, she rehearsed how to express herself calmly, to honor her pregnancy, her career, and her need for support. She would strive for peace. But she would not let guilt or obligation dim the bright promise shining within her. Because here, among these espresso machines and the gentle clatter of porcelain cups, Monica Reed was carving out a new life, one latte, one muffin, one sunrise at a time. By the time the final customer drifted away around 3:30 p.m., Monica turned off the lights, locked the door, and shouldered her bag. Outside, the afternoon sun had warmed the streets. She straightened her spine, adjusted the straps of her insulated bag, and headed home, ready to face a different kind of challenge in the Harper kitchen. Her fingertips still tingled with the steam of steamed milk and the hum of the market. But as she walked, Monica felt a flicker of something stronger, determination. Whatever dinner held, she would meet it on her terms. With the quiet confidence of a woman who knew her worth, both as a mother and as her own person. Monica's heels clicked against the pavement as she walked the half-mile from morning mist to the Harper residence. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the tree-lined streets of Maple Grove, but her mind was clouded with anxiety. Last night's argument with Derek still stung, but nothing compared to the pit of dread that had settled in her stomach this morning when she'd found an unfamiliar text on his phone.
Now.
As she unlocked the front door, she braced herself for what would come. Inside, the house was quiet. Celeste was out running errands, leaving only the faint ticking of the kitchen clock to greet Monica. She dropped her insulated tote on the counter and rubbed her temples. Dinner was supposed to be a calm, civilized exchange. Monica needed to talk to Derek about boundaries, trust, and the baby's well-being. Instead, she found a note on the fridge in Celeste's precise handwriting. Dinner at 6:30. Be prompt. Monica glanced at the clock, 6:15. She still had time. She told herself to breathe, to steady her emotions. She headed upstairs to change out of her café apron, rehearsing soft, non-confrontational words. I wanted us to talk. I feel hurt because... At 6:25, she was back in the living room, dressed in jeans and a cozy knit sweater, her hair loosely pinned back. A deep breath. She stepped into the hallway and paused outside the guest bedroom, known to locals as the spare room. It was dark, curtains drawn against the evening chill. Ding-dong.
The doorbell rang.
Derek was home early. She smoothed her sweater and answered. He stood on the porch, his tired brown hair mussed, a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. He looked disheveled. Hey, she said softly. You're back early. He managed a quick smile. Project got canceled. Thought I'd surprise you. She nodded, forcing a faint smile in return. That's nice. He called up behind him. Mom, I'm in. Monica stepped aside. He strode past, leaning in to kiss her cheek, a gesture once warm, now perfunctory. She barely felt it. In the hallway, the air seemed to thicken. Monica's heart pounded, pulse flaring. She wanted to ask him right then. Where were you yesterday? She wanted to demand the truth about the messages she'd seen. But she clamped her mouth shut. Tonight, she would test him gently, give him a chance to explain before confronting. They entered the kitchen, where Celeste sat at the vinyl-topped table, arms crossed. 2 steaming bowls of soup sat before her. Chicken ginger broth and a plate of roasted root vegetables. Monica swallowed a lump in her throat. "Sit," Celeste ordered.
Eat.
Derek dropped his duffel by the pantry and joined them, but he hovered between mother and wife, hesitant. Monica took her seat across from Celeste, glancing at Derek, who met her gaze with an unsteady look. Fork poised above her bowl, Monica broke the silence. "Thanks for dinner, Mom." Celeste watched her sharply. "You look tense, Monica. Everything okay at work?" Monica nodded. "Busy, as usual." Derek cleared his throat. "Dinner smells great, Mom." He shifted in his chair, looking anywhere but at Monica. She waited, spoon halfway to her mouth, and then spoke in a low voice. "Derek, can we talk?" Celeste's eyebrows shot up. She stabbed at a piece of carrot. "There's nothing to talk about, just eat." Monica's spoon clattered against her bowl as she put it down. "Not everything's fine." Derek's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to speak, then shut it again. Celeste leaned forward. "Monica, we're having family dinner. Keep it civil." Monica stood, moving her chair back swiftly. "No, I'm not going to pretend everything's fine." Derek pushed to his feet. "You're making a scene." She met his eyes, voice trembling but clear. "You've been lying. I've seen the messages, and I followed you today. You spent the night with someone else." The room fell deathly silent. Celeste's lips parted in shock. Derek's face went from startled to defensive. "You don't know what you're talking about," he spat. "Oh, yes I do," Monica said, voice rising. "I saw the text from Lindsay on your phone. Can't wait to see you again. And I saw your truck in the parking lot at the Sequoia Inn this morning." Derek ran a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think." Celeste jumped to her feet, knocking her chair back. "Derek, is this true?" He looked at his mother, then at Monica. "Monica, he faltered. Monica's chest heaved. "Answer her." He swallowed hard. Finally, "Yeah. I slept in my truck. That girl is just a friend. It's not what it looks like." Her vision blurred with betrayal and anger. "A friend who texts miss you at 3 a.m.? A friend you declare love to on the phone." Derek's face crumpled. "I'm sorry." "Save it." She cut him off, stepping back. Her hand flew to her pregnant belly protectively. "I'm done, Derek. I'm done letting you hurt me and our baby." Celeste let out a sharp cry. "Don't talk about my grandson like that." Monica shook her head, tears pricking her eyes. "This is exactly why I need a new start." Derek reached for her arm, pleading. "Monica, please. We can fix this." But she pulled away. The tension peaked like a drawn bowstring. She felt a heavy knot in her throat, the weight of her decisions settling in. Celeste's chair screeched on the tile floor as she lunged forward. "You'll regret this, both of you." But Monica didn't look back. She stormed out of the kitchen, past the table of uneaten soup, out the front door, and into the cool night air. The crunch of her footsteps on gravel echoed the shattering of their marriage as she walked away, every step fueled by her determination to protect herself and her child from further betrayal. Behind her, the Harper home stood silent and dark, its walls too small now for the broken promises that had once bound this family together. Monica's chest tightened as she sat in the dim courtroom, the morning light filtering through high windows and casting long rectangles of brightness across the polished wood floor. Her lawyer, Marissa Clark, sat beside her, offering a reassuring squeeze to her hand. Across the room, Derek slumped in a seat, arms crossed, staring at the bench. Above them, the judge's imposing figure, Judge Ramirez, reviewed documents before looking up. "Reed versus Harper," Judge Ramirez began, voice calm but firm. "We are here to finalize the terms of the dissolution of marriage. Ms. Reed, Mr. Harper, have you reached agreement on division of assets and custody of the marital home?" Monica took a careful breath. The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Every heartbeat seemed thunderous in her ears. She remembered the night she first learned of Derek's betrayal, the sickening knot in her stomach as she followed his truck to that roadside lodge, the quiet fury that had driven her to his pickup door, and the way the wreckage of that moment had spilled into their life. Shattered trust, countless sleepless nights, a tangle of doubts about the future for herself and her unborn child. "Yes, Your Honor," she said, voice steady. "We've agreed on all terms." Judge Ramirez nodded. "Very well. Counsel may present the settlement." Marissa stood, handing the judge a typed agreement. "Your Honor, the parties have stipulated the following. The marital home at 214 Elmwood Drive will be sold, with net proceeds divided equally. Ms. Reed will retain all personal property, furniture, art, and the contents of her bakery, Sweet Harmony. Mr. Harper will keep the investment portfolio in his name. Monica will receive 50% of the business valuation, distributed as a lump sum." Judge Ramirez scanned the document. "And custody?" "Joint legal custody of the unborn child," Marissa continued. "Physical residence will be with Ms. Reed once the child is born, with scheduled visitation for Mr. Harper." A small smile flickered on Monica's lips, relief mingling with a twinge of sadness. She would be the primary caretaker, just as she had wanted. She would raise her son or daughter in her own home, free from the tension that had shadowed her pregnancy. Derek's lawyer cleared his throat. "Your Honor, there is also the matter of the tilapia stall at Maple Grove Farmers Market and the café lease at Morning Mist. Ms. Reed will assume full responsibility for the lease and operational expenses of Morning Mist. Mr. Harper waives any future claim." Monica caught Derek's eye. His expression was unreadable. Regret? Resentment? She could no longer tell. But she felt a curious calm. The last year had pushed her to the brink, and now, at this precise moment, she was reclaiming her life. Judge Ramirez nodded, then looked down at both of them. "I am satisfied that this agreement is fair and equitable. I hereby decree the marriage of Reed and Harper dissolved. Good luck to both of you." The gavel rapped once, twice. Monica let the sound wash over her like a cleansing wave. She exhaled, the tight coil of anxiety loosening in her chest. Her shoulders lowered slightly. After months of tension, she felt, for the first time, the sway of freedom. Outside the courtroom, photographers and onlookers milled around, whispering as they recognized the former couple. Monica ignored them, focusing on Marissa's encouraging nod. She stepped into the hallway, where Derek already stood, suit jacket slung over his arm. He extended a hand, hesitating. "Monica," he began, voice low. She turned, meeting his eyes without rancor.
"Derek," she said.
"Take care of yourself." He looked relieved, yet something sorrowful flickered across his face. "You too. And congratulations, I guess. You'll be a great mom." A bittersweet warmth stirred in her heart. "Thanks," she replied softly. Then, before more words could spill, promises or regrets, she turned and walked away. The lobby's fluorescent lights faded behind her as she stepped outside into the clear spring afternoon. Sunlight warmed her face. A gentle breeze teased her hair. She glanced at her phone. 8:45 a.m. She was due back at Morning Mist to check inventory, confirm the new assistant barista's schedule, and oversee a catering order for a baby shower brunch. All her responsibilities, once tangled with Derek's life, now lay squarely in her own hands. Across the street, a maple tree unfurled its first tender leaves, sunlight filtering through the pale green canopy. Monica paused, closing her eyes for a moment to soak in the sight. Finally, she let herself smile, an honest, full-sided smile unclouded by guilt or fear. Freedom, she realized, wasn't just the absence of conflict. It was the presence of choice. The choice to build her own home, to nurture her child in peace, to follow her passion without apology. She reached for her phone and dialed Elena.
"Hey, it's me," she said.
"Can you cover the lunch rush? I'll be there in an hour." As she crossed the street toward her cafe, The judge's words echoed in her mind. Good luck to both of you. Monica turned them around, feeling their full promise. Good luck to her new life, her new family, and the boundless possibilities ahead. 3 weeks after the divorce decree, Monica was elbow-deep in cookie dough at Sweet Harmony when her phone buzzed with a frantic text from her mother-in-law. Derek's in an accident. Call me ASAP. A chill raced down her spine. She wiped her hands on her apron, dropped everything, and dialed Celeste. Mom, what happened? Monica demanded, as soon as Celeste's trembling voice came through. It was a scaffold collapse at the site. Celeste choked out. Derek's in City General. Her words faltered. Monica's heart lurched. She grabbed her coat and bolted out of the café before Celeste could finish. At City General Hospital, the emergency entrance was a flurry of paramedics and worried visitors. Celeste, face ashen, clutched Monica's arm as they climbed into the elevator. When the doors opened on Derek's room, they found a solitary bed surrounded by machines, beeping monitors, and 4 drip, and a heavy air of suspense. Derek lay motionless, his right leg in a rigid brace. A fresh bandage snaked around his upper thigh. He was unconscious. Monica's chest tightened, and tears sprung unbidden. A doctor in scrubs approached. Mrs. Harper, Ms. Reed?
I'm Dr. Patel.
Your husband sustained a compound fracture, severe crush injury. Infection risk is high. We did what we could to save the limb, but we had to perform a below-the-knee amputation. Monica's knees buckled. She blinked away tears. Celeste's hand trembled on her shoulder. The word amputation echoed in her mind, like a grim drumbeat marking the end of everything Derek once was. Over the next 48 hours, Derek hovered between sedation and pain. Monica and Celeste took turns at his bedside. The once proud construction foreman lay small and fragile. Every breath was a testament to his narrow escape. Monica felt a tsunami of guilt. Though he was no longer her husband, she worried for his survival, for his future. But alongside the physical crisis loomed an even darker storm: the mounting hospital bills. City General's daily tab soared into 5 figures territory. Celeste, who had always boasted of financial savvy, found herself staring at invoices she couldn't parse. Mom, let me see that, Monica said gently, taking the stack of bills. Celeste's eyes burned with shame. I'll handle it, she stammered, but her voice cracked. In those shifting moments, Monica realized how precarious the life they had led was. Derek had been the family's breadwinner. His injury effectively destroyed his ability to work in construction. Without his income, every expense, mortgage, utilities, that cafe lease, suddenly dangled on a thread. By day 3, Celeste was a frantic blur, rushing to the market stall at dawn, then racing to the hospital gift shop for Derek's essentials, then to the bank to request a loan against her modest life savings. Monica tried to help, offering to cover Derek's apartment lease and siphon profits from her bakery, but Celeste recoiled. This is my responsibility, Monica, she snapped one morning, eyes wild. I can't let my son and my daughter-in-law see me beg. Despite her pride, Celeste found herself humiliated by her own helplessness. Creditors began to call. The scaffolding company demanding payment for the accident investigation, the home lender warning of late fees, even the cafe landlord requesting Derek's lease guarantee. Each call drove Celeste deeper into panic. One evening, Monica returned to City General late, carrying a sushi tray. She found Celeste asleep in a plastic visitor's chair. The tears streaming down her face in slumber left damp marks on her cheeks. Monica gently shook her awake. Mom, we need a plan, Monica whispered. You don't have to do this alone. Celeste looked up, red-rimmed eyes hollow. I've spent my life teaching Derek to stand on his own 2 feet, she said. Now I have to ask others for help, and I can't bear it. Monica knelt beside her. You're going through a loss too, Mom. He's your son. You don't have to do this. Her words broke as Celeste's shoulders shook. Monica realized that beneath Celeste's steel facade was a mother grieving her son's shattered future. Over the next week, Monica quietly mobilized her support network. She spoke with her attorney about negotiating a payment plan with the hospital. She tapped into the bakery's emergency fund to cover rent. And she called in favors. Her accountant offered to restructure Celeste's stall finances, a neighbor agreed to drive Celeste to work, and a local charity arranged short-term grants for amputation survivors. One morning, Monica arrived at City General with a folder of financial solutions. Celeste, sipping hospital coffee, looked at her daughter-in-law with fragile gratitude. "I was so wrong to push you away," Celeste murmured. "Thank you for saving us." Monica reached across the tray, squeezing her hand. "We're family. We'll get through this together." Derek awoke days later, staring at a prosthetic leg propped beside his bed. His eyes brimmed with panic, then filled with tears as he saw Celeste and Monica at his side. The road ahead would be long: physical therapy, adapting to a new body, learning a new career path. But for the first time, Derek felt the warmth of a family united in crisis, rather than torn by conflict. Outside their hospital room window, a robin landed on the windowsill, its bright eye flicking between the three of them. It hopped along the ledge, as if reminding them that even in tragedy, life and hope persist. In that moment, the Harper family took their first shaky, healing breath together. 2 months had passed since Derek's accident, and the Harper household remained engulfed in medical bills and rehabilitation appointments. Meanwhile, Monica found herself at a crossroads, torn between worry for her ex-husband's recovery and a burgeoning determination to build a life wholly her own. One crisp Saturday morning, she pushed open the front door of Sweet Harmony, the small bakery she had launched 6 months earlier, and took a steadying breath of yeast-kissed air mixed with a faint hint of vanilla. The shop's interior was warm and inviting, pale teal walls dotted with framed botanical prints, reclaimed barnwood shelving stacked with glass jars of preserves, and a reclaimed barnwood communal table surrounded by mismatched chairs. An antique radial mixer stood on a corner pedestal, its glossy white enamel reflecting the soft glow of pendant lights. A message board near the counter announced the day's specials: raspberry almond tarts, salted caramel morning buns, and blueberry lemon loaf. Monica hung her coat on a wrought iron rack and slipped on a fresh apron embroidered with the Sweet Harmony logo, a stylized honeybee hovering over a loaf of bread. She ran her hands across the polished marble countertop, imagining the afternoon rush already forming in her mind. Here, in this sunlit space, she was both artist and entrepreneur, free from past betrayals and new responsibilities that belonged only to herself and her future child. By 7:30 a.m., the ovens were whirring, and the bakery team assembled around Monica. There was Elena, the ever-steady barista who handled the espresso machine like an old friend; Marcus, the shy pastry assistant whose cinnamon rolls had become a cult favorite; and Lily, the part-time college student who stocked the shelves and greeted customers with effortless charm. "Ready for the morning briefing?" Monica asked, her tone brisk but gentle. Elena handed her a steaming mug of dark roast. "Always." Monica sipped, the coffee's bittersweet warmth anchoring her. "Today we're expecting a catering order for 20 sandwiches and 12 dozen muffins by noon. The park's annual spring fair needs fueling." She pointed to the to-do list scrawled in chalk on the blackboard wall. "Marcus, I need you on tarts. Lily, restock preserves. Elena, keep the line moving. I'll handle the catering pickup." They nodded, eyes bright with purpose. Monica loved this choreography of bakery life. Every role vital, every detail attended. It reminded her of her pregnancy, a balancing act of nurturing new life, inside and outside. As the morning unfolded, waves of customers drifted in. First came Mrs. Landry, the retired librarian who requested her usual: a matcha latte and a mini carrot cake. Next, Jace, a local graphic designer, breezed in with his drone camera tucked under one arm. "Hey, Monica. Need a willow flower muffin for my afternoon shoot," he quipped. Monica wrapped one and slipped it into his hand. "Good luck with the drone footage." He grinned. "Will do. Thanks for the fuel." By mid-morning, the air was fragrant with baked apples and brown sugar. Monica moved between the pastry case and the catering counter, inhaling the scent of success. She affixed labels to cardboard carriers, Sweet Harmony Catering, homemade goodness inside, and coordinated with Rosa, the delivery driver who would shuttle the order to Maple Grove Park. With a final checklist cross-off, Monica stepped outside to greet Rosa. The sun was high, and a breeze carried the laughter of children playing in the park's distance. She handed over trays of sandwiches, turkey avocado on sourdough and caprese on focaccia, and dozens of blueberry muffins snug in their paper cups. Rosa's van was already warm from the engine. She flashed Monica a thumbs up before pulling away. Monica lingered on the sidewalk, letting the morning's success wash through her. She placed a gentle hand on her belly, feeling the baby flutter in response, as if offering a sweet thank you. She closed her eyes, savoring that moment of unhurried peace. Back in the bakery, there was a lull before the lunch crowd. Monica used the quiet to tidy countertops and jot down inventory notes. She checked her phone. No new messages from Celeste. No new demands for fish or family dinners. The silence was not emptiness but freedom, a precious space where she could focus on her own rhythm, her own responsibilities. At precisely 11:45, the lunchtime rush hit. Office workers in crisp shirts and laptop bags streamed in, ordering chocolate croissants, pulled pork sliders, and flat whites. The line curved around the communal table, chatty and hungry. Monica slipped behind the counter, pulling trays of warm pastries from the carousel and refilling jars of jam. "Monica, this place is a lifesaver," one customer said, waving her iced latte. "Couldn't survive a Monday without you." Monica laughed, heart full. She barked gentle instructions to her team, making sure every order was perfect. In the midst of the controlled chaos, she felt her pulse quicken with exhilaration. She was alive. She was creating. She was thriving. When the last customer departed at 1:15 p.m., Monica collapsed onto a stool, sipping lukewarm coffee. Elena emerged from the kitchen with a yogurt parfait. "You earned this." Monica accepted the parfait gratefully. "Thanks." She closed her eyes, exhaustion and fulfillment mingling in her limbs. "I'm proud of us," she murmured.
Elena smiled.
"We're proud of you too." Later that afternoon, Monica met with her accountant, Nina, at a nearby café booth. They pored over profit projections and discussed investments for expanding Sweet Harmony, perhaps a second location or a small food truck. Monica listened, excitement bubbling at the prospect of growth. She realized that, despite the challenges she'd faced, betrayal, divorce, the Harper family's crisis, she was stronger than she had ever been. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Monica returned to the bakery to wind down. She swept floors, wiped counters, and wiped a stray smudge of flour from a pastry case window. Outside, the neon open sign flickered off, replaced by closed in its stead. She flipped off the overhead lights, heading to the back office to pack away the register. On her way, she passed a bulletin board cluttered with thank you notes, baby shower invitations, and hand-drawn hearts from customers who'd become friends. She paused, tracing the outline of a note that read, "Monica, thank you for the best cupcakes at Jenny's baby shower." Tucking the final scone into its box, she gathered her purse. As she locked the bakery's glass door behind her, the evening sky painted itself in lavender and rose. Monica took one last look at Sweet Harmony, her heart swelling with love and pride. In that moment, she knew that no matter what storms lay ahead, financial hurdles, single motherhood, the lingering echoes of her past, she would face them with courage. Because here, in the soft glow of twilight, she had found her true sanctuary, a place built from dough, dreams, and unwavering self-respect. With a contented sigh, Monica Carson Reed turned her face to the sunset and stepped forward into her own story, one chapter at a time. Avery Quinn first realized her world had shifted the morning she found those two thin pink lines on the little stick in her hand. Only 19, with her life mapped out in neat plans, culinary school, a stable career, maybe one day a family, she stared at the result in shock, then exhilaration. Jasper Cole, 22 and the kindest soul she had ever known, was the father. He'd swept into Sweet Harmony last spring, muddy boots and all, asking for a double latte and the chance to sit in a corner where he could sketch the oak tree outside the cafe window. Avery, fresh from her pastry apprenticeship, had watched him, curious, and when he spilled flour on her shoe by accident, they had laughed together, and something gentle had begun between them. When Avery summoned the courage to tell Jasper, he held her trembling hands as if they were precious relics. "A baby," he breathed, eyes wide. "Our baby." Instead of panic, they shared hope. Over coffee-stained sketches and late-night calls, they dreamed of finishing school, of painting nursery walls pastel green, of Jasper mowing lawns by day and studying business at night. But reality arrived at Avery's parents' dining room table with an abrupt thud. Michael Quinn, her dad, stared at her as though she'd announced she'd be moving to Mars. Grace Quinn, her mother, clutched her napkin, eyes damp. They loved Jasper. He'd been at every family barbecue, carrying Avery's grandmother's dishes so politely that the older woman declared him one in a million. But a grandchild so soon? At 19? They insisted on caution, on postponement, even urged adoption. Michael's voice was sharp. "You're not ready." Grace's tone broke. "We're scared for you." Avery's heart hurt, but she held firm. "I want this baby," she said softly. "I love Jasper. We'll make it work." Jasper stood beside her, shoulders squared, voice calm. "We'll juggle. I'll work extra shifts. Avery will keep her apprenticeship. We can do this together." Their resolve hung between them, a bright hope flickering against their parents' fear. Faced with their daughter's certainty and Jasper's sincerity, the Quinns relented. Grace wiped her tears and offered a hesitant smile. "We'll support you," she said. "But we're worried about your education, your health." Avery hugged her mother, grateful for even this cautious blessing. Determined, Avery and Jasper transformed his small apartment into a cozy nest. Avery painted the walls soft dove gray. They scoured thrift stores for a crib, assembled it late at night to the soundtrack of Avery's favorite podcasts. Jasper brought home a second-hand stroller, its wheels scuffed but sturdy. They stocked the pantry with pasta, rice, and prenatal vitamins. Avery baked extra batches of scones to sell at the cafe, every penny going into their baby fund. Jasper mowed lawns at dawn and dusk, saving exact change in mason jars labeled nursery and college fund. When Avery's belly rounded at 5 months, the Quinns found it impossible to deny the reality and the joy. Michael offered to drive her to every doctor's appointment, his rough hand gentle on her shoulder. Grace knitted tiny hats and booties, her laughter returning as she imagined holding her first grandchild. At Grace's suggestion, they began talking wedding plans, not an extravagant affair, but a promise before family and friends. A simple ceremony in the park where Avery and Jasper had first held hands. On a bright Saturday morning in June, Avery slipped into a lace-trimmed, white dress borrowed from her older cousin. The ceremony took place beneath the old elm at Birchfield Community Park, where dappled sunlight danced on the grass. Chairs lined a semicircle of meadow flowers and ferns. Jasper waited at the front, a navy blazer over a crisp shirt, his face a portrait of awe. As Avery walked the short aisle barefoot on the cool grass, Jasper's eyes shimmered with tears. Her smooth shoulders held the curve of new life. His steady gaze held all the promises they'd made in whispered conversations at dawn. Their vows were simple, heartfelt. Avery promised unwavering love, partnership, and the courage to face whatever came next. Jasper vowed to shelter and support her and their child, to nurture their family with patience and laughter. A gentle breeze carried petals from neighboring flower beds as they sealed their commitment with a kiss beneath cheers from parents, siblings, and cafe friends. The reception was a potluck under a white canopy, platters of grilled chicken, bowls of fresh salad, and Avery's signature strawberry rhubarb galettes cooling on ruffled linens. A local friend strummed guitar on a folding stool, gently leading guests in a jubilant rendition of "You Are My Sunshine." Children chased bubbles. Elders nodded contentedly. Grace leaned close to Avery, voice affectionate. "You make me so proud." Michael clasped Jasper's shoulder, eyes bright. "You take good care of her." As twilight settled, Avery and Jasper slipped away to sit on a blanket beneath the elm. Avery rested a hand on her belly, feeling a soft flutter. Jasper brushed a stray hair from her face. "We did it," he whispered. Avery smiled, her heart full. "We did." In the gathering dusk, fireflies danced like drifting lanterns, a silent celebration of new life and new beginnings. Against the hush of whispered confidences and the promise of tomorrow, Avery and Jasper embraced their future, knowing that love and unwavering determination had carried them to this perfect, fragile moment. Avery woke before dawn to the cacophony of her new life, the rumble of the wood-burning stove in the corner, the soft rustle of quilts as her mother-in-law, Marisol Cole, prepared for another day, and the urgent flutter of her own baby's kicks. At 22 weeks pregnant, Avery's body already felt like a delicate balancing act. She swung her legs out of the makeshift cot in the spare room and wrapped herself in the scratchy quilt. Through the window, the first pale light of morning painted the cornfield beyond the farmhouse in silvery blue. Marisol's voice, firm, unyielding, drifted through the cracked door. "Avery, come help with the planting. The ground won't wait." Avery pulled on boots and a worn denim jacket, steeling herself. Just hours earlier, she and Jasper had driven from their small apartment to move in with his mother. Bound by tradition, necessity, and their own murky finances, Jasper's accident had drained their savings. They had no choice but to live under Marisol's roof. The same roof where Jasper grew up, where his father's tools still hung neatly on workshop walls, and where every creak and draft was a testament to family history. In the kitchen, a stout pot of black coffee bubbled on the cast-iron stove. Marisol, 56 and possessed of sinewy strength earned from decades of farm labor, ladled steaming oatmeal into chipped enamel bowls. She slid one bowl across the counter to Avery without a word. Avery nodded her thanks, swallowing the oatmeal even though she yearned for something lighter. Cinnamon apple granola was tempting, but in this house, the rules were clear. Eat what you're given, no complaints, and save your preferences for when you own a place of your own. Outside, the morning air was sweet with damp earth. Marisol led the way to the back field, where shallow trenches awaited seedlings. Avery followed, her sweatshirt damp around the collar. She set down her bowl and knelt in the wet soil, her knees protesting the cold. Marisol handed her a bundle of corn seedlings. "Rows 3 through 6, she instructed. "Plant them 6 inches apart, line straight. We don't waste seed here." Avery slipped her hands into the loam, pressing each tiny plant into the earth with gentle pressure. Her back ached instantly. She paused to rest her hands on her knees, her breath catching. The persistent ache in her lower back was no stranger, but today it pulsed with an intensity that took her by surprise. "Everything all right?" Marisol asked, noticing Avery's wince. Avery forced a smile. "Just adjusting." Marisol nodded curtly and moved on to the next row without another word. In her mind, Avery heard the unspoken demand. No weakness, no second thoughts. By mid-morning, the sun climbed higher, burning off the fog that had blanketed the fields. Avery's sweatshirt clung to her damp skin. She reached for her water canteen, lifting it to her lips in a small triumph, only to feel a wave of dizziness swirl beneath her vision. The seedlings swam in her sight. Her hand trembled on the canteen. Marisol was already kneeling at the other end of the row, yanking stubborn weeds free. Avery set the canteen aside and straightened. She blinked, trying to force her vision clear. The world tipped. A gasp tore from her throat as she sank to one knee, clutching the ground. Soil and seedling dust rose into the shifting haze around her. Marisol whirled, dread furrowing her narrow brow, and in an instant knelt beside Avery, her strong hands gripping Avery's shoulders. "Avery, speak to me." Avery's mouth worked, but no sound came. Her heart raced. Every breath felt spindled and shallow. The earth beneath her knees felt like quicksand, drawing her under. She tried to pry her hands from the dirt, but her limbs felt numb, unresponsive. Panic flickered in Marisol's eyes. "Your water. Give it here." She grabbed the canteen and tipped it into Avery's mouth, who drank gratefully despite every pang of nausea. The ground and the sky spun in a cruel carousel, but through the haze, she heard Marisol's voice, steady yet urgent. "Stay with me, girl. Stay with me." Within a moment that stretched into eternity, Marisol had gathered Avery into her arms and carried her toward the farmhouse. Jasper, alerted by the commotion, rushed from the back porch, his face etched with alarm. "What happened?" he demanded, kneeling beside them. "She fainted planting corn," Marisol said, voice taut. "Too hot. She's dehydrated." Jasper swept Avery into his arms, cradling her as if she were the most fragile porcelain. Avery clung weakly to his shoulder, her vision fracturing. Marisol barked for Jasper to hurry, and he dashed through the front door, shouting her name. Inside, the farmhouse felt stifling in its silence. Jasper laid Avery gently on a couch in the living room. Marisol grabbed ice packs from the freezer, pressing one against Avery's forehead. The kitchen timer dinged as if mocking the crisis. Avery's breath hitched, her chest felt tight. Marisol set down the ice pack and made for the phone. "I'm calling Dr. Whitman," she said, urgency slicing her tone. Jasper covered Avery with a quilt. Tenderness leaked through his panic. Within minutes, they were in Marisol's beat-up red pickup, Avery secured across the bench seat. Jasper on one side, Marisol on the other. Sirens wailed suddenly. Neighbors rushing in, calling for an ambulance, taking over. In a blur of flashing lights and medical urgency, Avery was whisked away to Birchfield General Hospital. The emergency ward buzzed with antiseptic efficiency. Jasper paced the hallway outside room 412, Marisol perched on a plastic chair, her knuckles white around the arms. Avery lay on a narrow bed, and 4-needle taped to her arm and oxygen mask resting lightly against her face. Head-to-toe monitors blinked, heart rate strong, blood pressure low. Before long, Dr. Whitman, a kindly figure in teal scrubs, stepped into the small observation room. Jasper and Marisol rose simultaneously, their faces a mask of worry. "Mrs. Cole, Miss Quinn," Dr. Whitman began gently, glancing at Avery's chart. Avery's fainting spell was caused by a combination of dehydration and low blood sugar, fairly common in pregnancies complicated by physical exertion. "She's stable now, but we need to monitor her for 24 hours. Bed rest for fluids, nutritious meals." Marisol closed her eyes in relief. Jasper exhaled a shaky laugh.
"Thank God," he said.
"How soon can she go home?" "It depends on how well she responds to treatment," Dr. Whitman replied. "If her levels normalize and she shows no further weakness, she could be released by tomorrow morning. In the meantime, she needs strict rest, no heavy lifting, no bending." Marisol's face softened. She squeezed Jasper's hand. "Thank you, doctor. We'll stay right here." Once the doctor departed, Jasper slipped into Avery's room. He sat beside her, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. Avery's eyes fluttered open, and she managed a small smile. "Hey," she whispered. "Hey," he replied, voice thick with relief. "How are you feeling?" Avery's mouth was dry, her lips cracked. "Like I fell off a cliff," she rasped. "But I'll be okay." Jasper leaned closer. "I'm here." He kissed her forehead. "I'll help you with whatever you need." Moments later, Marisol entered, holding a tray of chicken noodle soup. She placed the bowl on a side table, careful of the foreline. "Eat this," she said softly, but with an edge of command that was almost maternal rather than domineering. Avery eyed the soup. "Thank you," she managed, letting Marisol help her sip the warm broth. Strength seeped back into her limbs with every spoonful. After a while, Avery lay back on the pillow, eyelids heavy. Marisol smoothed the blanket over her and looked down with an expression Avery had never quite seen: compassion, pride, protectiveness. In that quiet hospital room, barriers between them seemed to ease. Avery no longer felt like an outsider earning her place under this roof. She felt like the daughter Marisol had always been too proud to admit she needed. As evening fell and the sky outside the window turned a deep indigo, Avery drifted toward sleep, Jasper's hand in hers, Marisol's humming low in the corner. The journey of becoming a daughter-in-law, of navigating new roles and expectations, had led to this fragile, healing moment, where love and responsibility converged, and family, in all its messy beauty, held them together. When Avery was finally discharged from Birchfield General the next morning, she felt both relief and a quiet resolve settle in her chest. Jasper wheeled her through the hospital's automatic doors into the crisp autumn air, and Marisol hovered close, her shoulders taut with worry. Once they reached the wide front porch of the farmhouse, Marisol paused, looking at Avery with eyes that trembled for the first time with humility rather than command. "Avery," she began, voice unsteady, "I owe you an apology. I treated you this morning as though you were only strong enough for farm chores, forgetting that you're carrying my grandson. I'm sorry for pushing you beyond your limits." Avery, bundled in a soft shawl Jasper had draped around her shoulders, blinked back tears. The worn leather armchair waiting by the lace-curtained window never felt so inviting. Yet it was the apology, genuine and overdue, that warmed her. She reached out to take Marisol's hand, the rough calluses meeting her own tender grip. "Thank you," she whispered. "It means everything that you said that." In the days that followed, the old rhythms of the Cole farmhouse shifted gently, imperceptibly at first, then with growing steadiness. Each morning Marisol rose before dawn to brew a pot of chamomile tea sweetened with honey, carrying a steaming mug up the creaking oak staircase to Avery's room. The ritual was tentative at first, Marisol stepping lightly so as not to startle her daughter-in-law's rest, but soon it became as natural as the rooster's call. Avery, in turn, welcomed the tray of tea and oatmeal with gratitude rather than qualm, the warmth of both drink and gesture settling her nerves. Downstairs, the kitchen stove glowed with steady fire, and the air filled with the promise of nourishment. Marisol stocked the pantry with soft-boiled eggs, whole-grain toast, and gentle ginger cookies. She had insisted on learning how to bake under Avery's patient guidance. She did not offer orders or corrections, only quiet offers of help, placing cookie tins on the counter and asking, "Is this what you need today?" Without fanfare or criticism, she carried folded quilts to the living room recliner, where Avery could rest between brief walks down the hallway. Avery watched these acts with growing affection. In the mornings when the dawn light streamed golden through the windows, she and Marisol shared quiet conversation on the porch steps. There were no demands, only questions. "How did you sleep? Are you feeling dizzy today? Would you like more tea or a light snack?" Beyond these simple exchanges, the two women discovered shared memories of childbirth stories passed down through Marisol's family, of weddings held under the same ancient oak in Birchfield Park, of children's laughter echoing across these very fields 1 generation ago. Slowly, laughter replaced tension, compassion banished judgment. As Whitney, now officially named Isabel Rose, growled into her crib one afternoon, Marisol and Avery sat side by side in the rocking chair, eyelids heavy with exhaustion. The baby's first feed had gone smoothly, with Avery cradling her daughter in a pink blanket hand-crocheted by Marisol's own mother decades before. The quilt's pastel bands of lavender and mint, once a source of silent pride, now symbolized the warmth between two women who had once been at odds. When Isabel's cries tapered into contented coos, Marisol leaned forward, brushing a finger down the baby's soft cheek. "She has your eyes," she murmured to Avery. "And your strength." Avery smiled, leaning against the worn armrest. "She has your heart," she replied. They rocked in unison, the wooden chair's soft creak harmonizing with the distant lowing of cattle and the hum of a tractor idling in the barnyard. The farm, once a battleground of expectations, now felt like a sanctuary of shared purpose. In the afternoons, when the farm chores demanded fresh energy, Marisol organized a schedule that honored everyone's needs. Jasper took over the early morning feeding of the livestock, allowing Avery to rest and recover. Mid-morning, Marisol walked Jasper through the paperwork for his vocational rehabilitation, pursuing grants and applications to retrain for farm management after his accident. And each afternoon, Marisol and Avery worked side by side in the garden, still taking care to avoid heavy lifting but finding joy planting pumpkins, tomatoes, and snap peas that Avery declared would become her next series of baby-friendly purees. Neighbors began to notice the transformation. They stopped by the back gate bearing casseroles of baked ziti or loaves of crusty bread. They whispered to Marisol that Avery was managing motherhood with grace, and to Avery that Marisol's devotion to her health and happiness was deeply moving. In the evenings, small clusters of friends gathered on the porch under strings of fairy lights, passing around mason jars of sweet cider and marveling at Isabel's bright coos. The farmhouse, once insulated from the world by strict routines and guarded hearts, now pulsed with community warmth. As weeks turned into months, Isabel grew from a fragile newborn into a chubby 8-month-old, wobbly when she tried to sit up, giggling when Marisol made silly faces. During those moments, Marisol's stern lines softened completely. She talked to her granddaughter in a gentle coo, using a soothing cadence she had once reserved only for farmhand instructions. "Good job, baby girl," she'd say, as Isabel clapped her tiny hands. "You're doing so well." Avery watched these interludes with a swelling heart. In Marisol's embrace, she saw not just a grandmother, but a mother who had forged a new way forward, one centered on compassion instead of conformity. And in their partnership, a daughter-in-law teaching her mother-in-law to nurture more than crops, a mother-in-law honoring the vulnerable journey of motherhood, Avery saw the possibility of modeled resilience. One clear morning, as sunlight spilled across the fields in broad gold ribbons, Avery and Marisol walked side by side in the orchard behind the farmhouse. Avery pushed Isabel in a stroller, sunlight illuminating her daughter's flaxen hair, while Marisol carried a wicker basket of freshly picked apples. They paused beneath an old apple tree, its boughs sagging with fruit, and Marisol turned to Avery. "I'm proud of you," she said simply. Avery stopped the stroller and looked up. "I'm proud of you," she replied. They embraced, two generations bound not by duty, but by genuine love. In the gentle sway of the apple-laden branches and the promise of wholesome cider to come, they felt the full circle of healing, from pain to apology, from misunderstanding to mutual respect, and from families divided to families united. That evening, the farmhouse glowed with celebration. Jasper announced he had secured a small foundation grant for his rehabilitation. Marisol presented her first batch of apple preserves with Avery's blessing, and the extended family gathered around Isabel as she blew raspberries at her own reflection. Laughter rang out across the porch, a bright hymn to the bonds they had rebuilt and the future they would nurture together, one apple, one recipe, one lullaby at a time. In that moment, framed by the dusk's lavender sky and the distant call of crickets, Avery and Marisol stood as equals, not as adversaries, united by the most potent of miracles, the healing power of understanding, forgiveness, and the enduring circle of family. When the first green shoots of spring pushed through the warmed earth, both Monica Reed and Avery Cole found themselves standing at new thresholds brimming with promise. For Monica, this season signified the full flourishing of Sweet Harmony Bakery, her beloved creation. Each morning she unlocked the door before dawn, welcomed by the soft hum of the ovens and the sweet scent of rising dough. Orders for baby showers, graduations, and neighborhood gatherings filled her ledger, each request a testament to her skill and resilience. As she piped pastel buttercream onto cupcakes and arranged trays of flaky croissants, Monica felt the quiet satisfaction that comes from shaping one's own destiny. The day began as it often did, a steady stream of regulars: Colleen the school librarian, Andre the young filmmaker, Mr. Patel the retired engineer, each greeted by name and handed a perfect latte. Their smiles and words of appreciation were small moments of affirmation, Reminders that Monica had built an enterprise not only on her baking talent, but on genuine human connection. No longer haunted by the memory of betrayal and divorce, she had reclaimed her life, anchoring her future on flour-dusted countertops and the warmth of her own determination. Across town, in the fertile fields surrounding the Cole farmhouse, Avery Cole embarked on her own new chapter. The farmhouse kitchen, once a battleground of clashing expectations, now echoed with laughter and shared chores. Avery stroked Isabel's soft curls as the baby gurgled in her lap, sunlight spilling through the window onto the blooming daffodils outside. Jasper stood at the counter chopping vegetables for their spring soup, while Marisol handed Avery a bowl of chopped greens and offered gentle advice on hydration. The collaborative energy in the room felt like a balm, healing old wounds and forging bonds of trust and respect. On a soft Sunday afternoon, the two women, Monica and Avery, along with Jasper, Isabel, and Marisol, gathered beneath the old elm tree at the edge of Birchfield Green for an impromptu picnic. Strawberries glistened on a quilt spread over the grass. Lemonade pitched in a pitcher borrowed from Monica's bakery supplies, and slices of lavender shortbread that Avery had perfected the night before. The community green, once a mere backdrop to weekend strolls, had become a stage for shared joy. Neighbors drifted over, drawn by laughter and the sweet scent of baked goods, joining them in conversation and celebration. Monica watched as Avery guided Isabel's small fingers to a strawberry, the baby's wide eyes lighting up at the vivid taste. Jasper and Marisol exchanged a nod of pride as they witnessed the two households, once embroiled in their own struggles, now merged in harmony. Monica felt her chest swell with gratitude. This scene, of new friendships and blended families, was proof that pain can yield growth, that adversity can lead to community. She caught Avery's eye and raised her glass of lemonade in a silent toast to fresh starts and the promise of spring. Later that week, Monica received the final statement from her attorney. The last liens on her former marital home had been cleared, and the equity transfer was complete. She closed her eyes at her kitchen table, the morning sun painting gold across her apron. For the first time in years, she felt unbound. No lingering attachments to a past defined by distrust and hurt. Only the exhilarating sense of self-determination. She drafted plans for a modest studio apartment above a second bakery location, an investment in her independence, and a secure home for her soon-to-be-born son or daughter. Meanwhile, Avery and Marisol celebrated the onset of spring planting season in the farmhouse garden. They knelt side by side, tenderly pressing seeds into the softened soil: carrots, snap peas, lettuce that would feed Isabel's first solid foods. Marisol hummed a lullaby from her childhood, a melody that she sang to Jasper when he was a baby. Avery joined in, her voice weaving through the rows of budding green. In that moment, the generational bridge between them felt strong and vibrant. The woman who had once doubted Avery's place on the farm now beamed with pride at her daughter-in-law's calm competence and unwavering care for the new life she carried. One radiant afternoon, Monica closed the bakery early and drove to the farmhouse with a basket of almond vanilla bundt cakes to share. Avery greeted her at the door with Isabel in one arm and a watering can in the other. The two women embraced, laughter bubbling up between them. They settled on the porch steps, passing cake slices and discussing their dreams. Monica's vision of expanding Sweet Harmony to a mobile food truck, Avery's plan to introduce baby-friendly vegetable purees to her mother-in-law's kitchen table. The warmth of kinship spread through them like sunlight. At sunset, they watched children chase fireflies in the orchard, the air fragrant with apple blossoms. Isabel gurgled at a dancing bug, and Avery scooped her up for a closer look. Monica stood nearby, savoring the scene, families intertwined by compassion and shared experiences. The bakery's success, Avery's harmonious role as daughter-in-law, and Marisol's transformation from disciplinarian to nurturing grandmother all converged in this gentle twilight. Over the coming weeks, Monica and Avery continued to support one another. Avery helped Monica brainstorm spring menu items. Isla approved carrot raisin muffins and pureed peach hand pies, while Monica provided Avery with backup business accounting advice for the farm's cooperative ventures. Jasper and Marisol, once wary of outside influence, listened with enthusiasm, valuing the fresh perspectives brought by their friend from the city. Even the local extension office took note of the unique partnership, a bakery and a farm combining efforts to launch a farmers market brunch series that would debut in early summer. On the morning of that inaugural market brunch, under a blue sky dotted with clouds, Monica's pastries and Avery's farm-fresh produce filled 12 beautifully arranged tables. Locals lined up, sampling savory quiches made with freshly gathered eggs and spring greens, sipping lavender lemonade while Isabel toddled between picnics. The event's success rippled through the towns of Maple Grove and Birchfield, proof that collaboration and community spirit could elevate everyone involved. As the farmhouse lanterns glowed next to the barn that evening, the entire extended family gathered for a celebratory supper, grilled asparagus and chicken raised on their own land, slices of Sweet Harmony's sour cherry galette, and glasses of cider fizzing with citrus notes. Around that table, frustration and fear belonged to another season. Instead, the air rang with laughter, toasts to growth and resilience, and heartfelt thanks for the ways each person had healed and learned. Monica raised her glass, capturing the flicker of lantern light in her eyes. To fresh starts, she toasted, voice warm, to all we've endured and all we've built together. Avery stood beside her, Isabel nestled at her hip. To family, however we define it, she added, a radiant smile lighting her face. Jasper placed his hand on Marisol's shoulder. To traditions renewed and bonds remade, he said softly. Marisol met Avery's gaze, pride shining through tears. And to the next generation, she whispered, who will grow up knowing love and forgiveness. In that glow of contentment, as fireflies danced past the barn and cicadas began their evening call, they all sensed the truth they had uncovered, that happiness need not be perfect, that families may form in unexpected ways, and that sometimes the hardest battles yield the richest harvest of hope. And so, under the same sky that had seen their trials and triumphs, they laughed and ate into the night, two households linked by shared purpose, by the warmth of second chances, and by the enduring promise of spring. And that brings us to the end of today's story on Truistery Vibes. Don't forget to leave a comment with a quote or moment that touched you the most. Your words give our team the motivation to keep creating more heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.